June 24th, 2021, the residents of Surfside Condominium in Miami were mostly asleep, doing the same thing they would normally do on a normal night, except it wasn't a normal night. In the middle of the night, a few residents noticed a loud sound, almost sounded like shotguns being fired. Witnesses say that a few people went down to the front lobby and told the doorkeeper there, hey, something is going wrong with the building. And they ran out and they looked and said, well, we don't know what it is, but we probably better get out of here. And those few people who said, I don't know what's happening, but we probably better get out, those were the few survivors, because moments later, half of the, and do we have the video there we can put up there? Half of the whole condominium just collapsed to the ground. Suddenly, 98 people were buried inside. It was a tragedy. How many of you guys remember that moment, hearing about that on the news? Okay, it was shocking. And it was shocking because, like, dude, this is America. That kind of stuff doesn't happen here. Okay, we have miles of building code to prevent those kinds of things from happening. Anybody ever try to change something in your house or at your business and realize there's a building code violation for everything? Okay, it's kind of frustrating. But it's to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. We could take that off the screen now. It's to prevent that kind of thing from happening. It was shocking. And so there was a full investigation done because people wanted to know, how did this happen and how can we keep that from happening to any more apartment buildings in our nation? Today I want to talk to you about a different kind of collapse, but it was one that when it happened, it was just as shocking, it was just as devastating, and the people around, I'm sure, were thinking just as much, how did this happen and how can we keep this from happening again? Judas Iscariot went from one of Jesus' closest friends, one of his most ardent allies, from bestie to backstabber, and became the most notorious, okay, long before Benedict Arnold, okay, the most notorious betrayer in human history when he betrayed Jesus. And I'm sure the guys that were around him are thinking, how did this happen? How do you go from one extreme to the other? And if we do an investigation, you're going to see that there were warning signs. There were things that were happening underneath the surface, and things that led to a moral collapse, things that you and I can look at and learn from so that we don't face our own devastating implosion. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Now, before we jump into that, let me take just a moment to greet those who are with us online, because you may not know, but our YouTube feed later in the week, it starts right here at the message. So I'm glad you're here. And Facebook folks, I'm glad that you're here as well. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel. If you're on Facebook, you can like or follow our page. If you're watching this because a friend shared it with you, here's what's cool. They shared this with you because they feel like there's stuff that we're talking about today that would benefit your life just like it benefits theirs. And if you're here in the room and something today resonates with you, take a minute and share this video with somebody that you care about, because the things we're talking about today, I think are going to help anyone who wants to live a life free of moral collapse. Whatever platform you're on, let me say this too, jump on the comment thread and just put your name or just let us know that you're here. We'd love to connect with you, just like with the folks in the room, because church is more fun with friends. So I'm glad that you're here. Okay, so this moral collapse, how did it happen? Well, let me start from the moment when everything went bad, and we'll work our way backward, and we'll see if we can figure out where things went wrong. Rather than read to you from Matthew 26, we're going to watch a depiction of that from our friends at the Lumo Project, verse by verse. So let's watch this, Matthew's account of where things went wrong.
While Jesus was in Bethany, in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "Why this waste?" they asked. "This perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told, in memory of her." Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over.
I turned myself off. Moment of collapse right there. Judas has the wrong perspective on something. Jesus corrects him in front of the other guys. And right from that moment, Matthew notices and he records, Judas goes to the guys and says, "All right, I'm done with this guy. How much will you give me if I sell him out to you?" Now that is a shocking turn. If it's a momentary, if you go from point A to point B instantly, that is just mind-boggling. Just like an apartment building just going from standing to rubble instantly. And maybe some of you guys have heard all about this. They did a thorough investigation. There are elements of this collapse 2 years later that are still ongoing. But they found some interesting things about this condo that collapsed. They found that 3 years before the collapse, there was a building inspection. And inspectors found that the large pool right outside, because it's Florida, right? Everybody's got a pool in Florida. This large pool right outside was leaking. And little by little, water from the pool and water from the deck around the pool was leaking underground, and it was washing out some of the ground around these big concrete pillars that the whole building was standing on. There was a parking garage underneath the apartment complex, and cracks began showing up in the parking garage years before the collapse. There were ongoing problems that little by little were making things worse. Well, there was something, as I was reading a while back John's gospel, and I noticed something. You ever have this? Read the same passage you've read your whole life, and something different stands out, and you're like, wow, I never noticed that before. I had one of those moments. One of the great things about multiple gospels is different guys have different perspectives on the same event, and they have different pieces that they add to the scene. Same event that Matthew recorded, but listen to how John presents this. John 12, verses 4 through 6. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" Okay, that part's exactly the same. You know which of the disciples got cranky because he felt like this was a waste. But then he says this. He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. So what John is saying is, yes, Judas got upset in the moment. Yes, his heart was in the wrong place in the moment. But there was an ongoing problem, unrelated in many ways to betraying Jesus, and that was he was in charge of the money, and he used to, and the verbiage, without getting real deep into the Greek stuff here, the verbiage is there was an ongoing pilfering of the money box. Judas was just stashing a little bit in his pocket, little bit at a time, real quietly. And we learn something from his life. We learn something from the collapse of the condo, and it's something that can prevent collapse for you. And I want you to write this down, and I want you to think about this, and I want you to remember this today, that small concessions lead to big collapses. Write that down. Small concessions lead to big collapses. Anybody ever played the game Jenga? You guys ever like that? Jenga had the unfortunate strategy of making a game and apparently not copywriting it very well, because you can get tumbling block game just about anywhere now. Okay, but when I was a kid, it was Jenga, you know, it's this fun game where you see how many of these can I pull out before the whole thing comes down. And a lot of times you can take quite a few. But eventually one of these becomes the last one, right? It's the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. And one of these eventually will be one step too far. Small concessions lead to big collapses. Okay? It wasn't an asteroid that knocked the tower down. It was just drip, 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 water. It wasn't one moment, because I don't want you to miss this. It wasn't one moment that caused Judas to flip from being Jesus' best friend to stabbing him in the back. It was a long, drawn-out process of these little moral concessions. Now, when I say concessions, okay, because I know some of you guys are like, concessions, like hot dog and peanuts, right? When I go to the gate, not that kind of concessions, right? Let me define, okay, let me give an operational, I know you're smarter than that, okay? It's being funny. Let me give you the operational definition for today of concession, okay? Here's the definition in the dictionary. Concession: to begrudgingly grant permission or accept defeat. To begrudgingly grant permission or to accept defeat. This is not, I'm struggling through, but I'm challenged and I'm fighting every inch of the way. This is, you know what? It's just a little bit. It's okay. It's just a little bit. Nobody will notice. It's just a little drip. It's not wrecking anything. Concessions. Small concessions lead to big collapses. Ooh, it's teetering. And see, we all fear the collapse, but we don't give enough respect to the concession. Because in the moment, the concession never seems like that big of a deal. Listen, nobody takes their first joint expecting to become a coke addict. Nobody has the first 48-ounce Pepsi expecting to develop diabetes and lose a toe or an ankle or a foot or a leg. Nobody sends the first flirty text expecting to wreck their marriage and lose custody of their kids. Nobody falsifies a few things on their resume to land the job and fudges a few reports expecting to get invested for fraud. You never start looking at the potential collapse. It's just a text. It's just a couple of numbers. I'm just bumping this idea up. I'm just having a little fun. No one takes the first thing expecting the collapse, but over time, small concessions lead to big collapses. And here's why. Write this down. Because every concession erodes your character. Every one of those times that you say, I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it, and God will understand because it's okay. It's just a little bit, right? I'm just having a little fun, okay? But it's never just a little bit, okay? The first not safe for work but funny post that your buddy sent, oh, it's just a joke. Yeah, but it doesn't stay just a joke. And those things, little by little, that first, hey, did you hear? I know I'm not supposed to say anything, so don't say anything, but did you hear that Rhonda and Greg are having, okay? That first little bit, I'm just going to share that one story. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's just one little thing. Yeah, I know it's just one little thing. And in the moment, nothing bad happens. But over time, small concessions lead to big collapses. And I don't want that to happen to you. Who here would say, Pastor Chris, I would love to have a monumental moral collapse. I'd love to make the front page of the Pekin News. Hey, dad gets DCFS to roll up with guns drawn to take his kids. Okay? I don't want that. You don't want that. How can we prevent that? Okay? Nobody. Who wants to live in an apartment building that might crash on top of them? Not me. One person. You're like, I'm going to go out that way. Woo! Okay? Crush me. Okay? Other than Dirk, nobody else wants to be crushed by, thousands of tons of falling concrete. Okay? So here's what happened. We see something bad happen. We investigate. We say, what led to this? What preventative steps can we take so that that doesn't happen again? I want to talk to you about how to strengthen your moral foundation with the balance of our time here. Write this down. You have to take care of your moral foundation. Because if you allow things to just little by little slowly erode it, eventually, when the pressure comes, you won't have the foundation you need to stand up under it, and you'll collapse. I want to give you a couple of things. And look, there are times, okay? Next week, I know some of our alien folks, it's next week, okay? Wear the shirt next week, and the thing, those are awesome, okay? Next week, we're gonna talk about some more like bigger ideas and helping understand God better, and there's a time for that. But today, I don't want to say you might collapse morally and then give you theoretical. I want to give you some actual rubber hits the road. You can do this week and help prevent a collapse in your life. I want to give you 3 things that you can start today that will make a difference. And I want you to write these down so you remember them. The first one is this: you need to perform routine inspections. Routine inspections, like ongoing, regular, habitual, I know it's coming, I do this all of the time, routine inspections. Now, let me just be honest with you, okay? If you are a building inspector, I love you with the love of the Lord, okay? But if I made a list of like the great antagonists in Chris's life story, like safety or code violation inspectors are probably on that list. Because every time they come to my house, it's, you need to do this and this and this, and before you can sell this house, you need to change 7 things. Okay, and they all cost me money. Every time they come to the church, you can't have this wire going up here, you can't have this, and it's always frustrating. But here's the thing, we need building inspectors because all of these codes and policies are to prevent terrible, catastrophic failure. You need to perform routine spiritual inspections. Listen to the words of the psalmist here, Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24. The psalmist says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life." Do you know who wrote that? David. Now, we don't know, he didn't date this psalm. We don't know exactly when he wrote it, okay? So let me insert my perspective here, okay? This is not biblical truth. This is just my guess. My hunch is that David wrote this after a great moral collapse in his life. David was one of the rock stars of the Old Testament. He's one of the greatest men who ever lived. And maybe you know the whole story. If not, you can read about it. It is it's like a soap opera. He's up on a rooftop when the other guys are at war. He sees this beautiful woman taking a bath, and instead of being like, wow, praise God for women, and then going downstairs and getting back to work, he's like, ooh, how about that? He ends up calling this woman to the palace. He has sex with her. Of course, Murphy's Law, she gets pregnant the one time while her husband's off at war where the king should have been, and this whole deal, and this becomes this huge scandal, and he thinks it's hidden, and eventually it blows up and becomes this huge public scandal. And here's a guy. Now, I don't know. Maybe he wrote this before. I just think, based on what he's saying, this is probably after, and he says, God, search my heart and test me. Find out if there's even any thought that's not you so that I can correct it now, before it becomes this huge scandal, before people literally get killed over this thing. It's important. Even the thoughts matter. You notice this. David doesn't say point out my actions. He says anything in me at all. And sometimes these little things are taking the money from the bag and putting it, well, there it goes. I was going to make that more dramatic later, but hey, that just shows you never know when it's going to crash, okay? Listen, sometimes it's taking the money and putting it in your pocket. Friends, let me tell you this. Sometimes that moral concession is thinking about taking the money and putting it in your pocket. Okay? Because, and write this down, bad thoughts precede bad actions. And as you're doing inspections, it's not enough to say, well, I haven't actually had an affair. No, but if you're dreaming about it, you're already there. Your heart's already there. Well, I would never shoot somebody. Listen, okay? How many of these public shootings where the guy gets mad at his job and he goes in with a gun and shoots up the factory, how many of those do you think he just woke up one morning, happened to be having a gun in his pocket, and he was in the building, he's like, well, I guess I'll shoot. No. It's a long time of compounding. They did me wrong. They shouldn't have. They didn't listen to my ideas. They gave the credit to someone else. They gave the raise to someone else. They're closing the factory down. It's a compounding of anger and hate and bitterness and resentment that eventually leads to this huge collapse. You gotta look. You gotta pray. You gotta say on a regular basis, God, show me, because bad thoughts precede bad actions. Matthew 5:28, Jesus said, listen, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Okay? You got to police your thoughts. You got to police your actions, and you say, Lord, are there things that are going on now that I'm allowing? So remember, concession is to begrudgingly allow, to admit defeat. Are there things going on in my life that I'm like, boys will be boys. Hey, that's just how it goes. It's not personal, it's business. Are there those things that are going on that I don't realize, but Lord, you see in the future they're going to lead to a collapse? Would you show me now so I can fix them now? Okay? So perform routine inspections. Number 2, write this down. You need to give someone permission to be your building inspector. You need to have somebody in life. And I say give permission because, let's be honest, there are times when somebody has truth to speak to you and it bounces off like rubber bullets off of a tank. Okay, you're not hearing it at all. A friend of mine, Rusty Rayleigh, used to say a lot that a rebuke only goes as deep as the relationship. Okay, but there needs to be somebody in your life who has the permission to tell you what's up, and they need to know that if they speak the truth in love, that's not going to break the relationship. And you need to know that if they're telling you, hey, XYZ PDF, right, your zipper's undone, right, that they're not a pervert. They're actually just trying to help you to avoid embarrassment. Anybody ever have the XYZ PDF person, right, in school, right? Hey, your fly's open, man, right? You need to have somebody that can say that. Hebrews 12:15 says it this way. It says, look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out, and listen to the words here. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Okay. Now, there are plenty of times in the Bible where we're instructed you need to take inventory of your own moral foundation. But here we're also saying, hey, church family, here's a benefit of having other people who also serve the same Lord and are living their life by the same moral compass. We need to be on the lookout. And that doesn't mean we're the morality police, okay? Some of you guys are like, oh, I'm good. I point out everybody's flaws. I know all the rules, right? Some of you guys are like, okay, you don't need to be everybody's building inspector. Okay? Because let me tell you, if there's not a relationship there, that at best, you'll give them something to chew on and think about. But most of the time, they're either going to not listen to you or they're going to become angry at you. There needs to be somebody. Okay? If you're married, a lot of times this is your spouse okay? Because they see the you at work, they see the you at home, they see the real you. Maybe it's a family member, okay? My wife has had time. We've had some arguments before where I'm angry and she's like, "You dummy, I'm trying to help you. You are blind." Okay, she doesn't say you dummy, but basically said, "You are blind to this thing that is broken in your life, and I'm trying to point it out so you can be healthy in this way." I'm like, "I don't want to be healthy, okay? But I need it. I need it." There are things, okay, look, there are some of these things in your life, and I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how many times you pray. It doesn't matter, "Oh, Holy Spirit, thou art welcome." It doesn't matter. You're blind to it, but somebody else can see it. And there needs to be somebody in your life that has permission. Listen, before Judas betrayed Jesus, John noticed what was going on. He saw it. I don't think the other guys did, because you see the way that when Jesus looks to Judas and said, "If you're going to do this thing, go and do it right now," and he leaves the table during the first communion, okay, most of the rest of the disciples had no idea what was going on. They were shocked. John wasn't shocked. He knew something was up. I don't know if he ever confronted Judas or not, but you need somebody who can look. Last thing, okay, you need to perform inspections. You need to have someone else who can be your inspector. And when you find the small concessions, just like Barney told us years ago, you need to nip it in the bud, right? Do we have that there for Barney? Maybe, right? Nip it, okay? How many of you guys remember the Andy Griffith Show? We used to have, this is nothing to do with Jesus or the sermon, but we used to have a cockatiel, and we tried so hard to get this bird to learn to talk, it would not say a word, but it would whistle the Andy Griffith tune every time it came on a TV. He loved that show. There's great wisdom. Listen, okay? There's great wisdom in finding the problem and taking care of it while it's small. My grandfather was a wise man, and when I got my first job as a lawn mower, okay, at like 14, he started right from the beginning. He said, "Son, I'm going to give you 2 words: preventative maintenance." Anybody have a dad like that? Preventative maintenance. You change the oil all the time, you check the gears all the time, you grease the wheels all the time, the thing won't break down on you in the middle of the lawn. Okay, I got my first vehicle. Preventative maintenance, preventative maintenance, preventative maintenance. You know what? There's wisdom in preventative maintenance. Because these little things are only little until they compound and they collapse on you. And when you find it, you have to nip it in the bud. Now, here's the problem. Nipping is painful. It's not easy, or else we would do it. If it's not a big deal, it wouldn't, okay, nobody would ever collapse. When this building inspection was done at the condo, and Dan, you can come back up. When the building inspection was done at the condo, 2018, they said, "Okay, your pool is leaking." Do you know what the quote was to fix the leak? $9 million. Whoa! Who feels better about the repair bill at your house now, right? At least it's not $9 million. Okay? If I had been the guy in charge of making this profitable for the shareholders, I would have had a hard time sleeping that night. Where am I going to come up with $9 million? It's not easy to fix these things. These small concessions, they don't want to be fixed. It's human nature. There's the enemy of your soul who is fighting hard, who says, "I may not be able to take you down in one fell swoop, but I can whittle away at the foundation, one chop at a time, one block at a time, one little bit at a time. I'll get you weak enough." Jesus said this about nipping it in the bud. Matthew 5:29. He said, "If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell." Now, understand, he did not mean that literally, okay? He's like, "Dude, I'm never coming back to this church." Okay? All right, let's be honest here. If every time your eye or your hand caused you to sin, we would all be blind with no hands, okay? He meant that. Here's what he meant. He meant if there's something in your life, if there's that little thing that's causing you, that's whittling away at your foundation, do whatever it takes to root it out now before it results in all of you failing. Okay? Do you know what the total cost was after the collapse? Okay, $9 million to fix the problem while it was a small leak. You know what the total cost was? The settlement that the condo owners had to give out to the people? $1.2 billion. Nipping it in the bud hurts, and it's painful. And I will not lie to you and say that it's easy. And that thing that's been going unchecked in your life, that little bit, it's just a little this. It's just I just need a little help to relax at night. I just need a little something to get me going in the morning. I just need a little, I've been working so hard. I've been so good. I just need a little me time, okay? Whatever that is. It's hard to give up. But if you don't address it when it's small, it may end up destroying you. I was looking at this last night as I was preparing to talk to you today. You know what I noticed? Okay? When Jesus spoke those words, if something small causes you to sin, tear it out, throw it away. It's better to do the emergency surgery than for your whole body to burn in hell. Okay? Do you know who was sitting in the crowd when he said that? Judas. And as I looked at that, I wonder if part of the Father's heart was saying that, and he's saying it to the crowd, but he knows that Judas is in the crowd, and the God who loves every soul loves him too. And I kind of wonder if in that moment Jesus is pleading with, he's saying this to everyone. I almost wonder if he was looking at Judas and he was saying, you're on a path that's going to destroy you. Don't let it ruin you. Tear it out now before it wrecks you. Take care of it now before you collapse. Don't let it wreck you. Better to do the painful thing now than be lost forever. I don't want that to be you. You say, Pastor Chris, why is this so heavy? I thought we like to have fun in church. We do. We do. But there's also a time to look and say, putting myself in danger? Is this little thing not that little of a thing? Last scripture passage to leave you with is Proverbs 4:23. The Bible says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. And the word guard would not make sense unless it was under attack. And let me tell you, it is. It is. Your heart is under attack. And the enemy's plans to destroy you are much subtler than you think. You're okay, I got the radar out, okay? And he's just the little dink and dunk stuff. But my friend, it's never just the one piece. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. We're just hooking up now and then. It's not that big of a deal. We're using a condom. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a few dollars. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just sharing a piece of news. It's not that big of a deal. It's always that big of a deal when the end result could be this. Don't go down that road. There have been plenty of pastors that have huge, visible, tragic moral collapses. Okay? I don't want to be that guy. I've had friends, okay? Some of you have seen this. I've had friends who I never saw this. I never saw the one piece at a time. And I never would have guessed. And I only saw it after the collapse, and I went, how did this happen? How did nobody see it? Let me tell you, somebody probably did. And I don't want that to be you. God has great things for you. And listen, I'll wrap up with this. Small concessions lead to big collapses. Small concessions. There are things, there will never be a moment of your life from now until you're with Jesus where there is not some pushback from your sinful, broken nature. You're always going to have stuff you're wrestling with. It's always going to be that. This is different, okay? Well, to be tempted is to be human, okay? And you fight, and you don't, but don't concede an inch. Never say, this is too hard, it's too much work. I'm just gonna make peace with it. I'm just gonna let this just kind of hang out. You destroy your moral character, and when the moment comes, when the moment pressure comes, that character is tested, and if you've worn away the foundation, there won't be enough to stand. And I don't want that to be you. So look after your moral foundation. Because small concessions lead to big collapses. Bow your heads with me as we close. Let me say this. I'm talking today primarily to people who have a relationship with God, and we talked about that during communion, but maybe you're here today. Maybe you turned on this video today, and you've never made a decision to accept God's forgiveness and to choose to serve Him with your life. Let me tell you, unless God intervenes, every human on earth is going to fall short of the entrance requirements for heaven. And you're going to spend eternity separated from God, full of anguish and regret. And I don't want that for you, and you don't want that for you. The only way that this collapse doesn't happen in your life is having God step in and intervene and help. And the good news is that He has stepped in, and He offers to every one of us forgiveness, a fresh start. Maybe you're here today and you've never made the decision to reach out to God and ask for help. Today is your day. This is your time. You don't have to jump through hoops to be good enough for God. That's actually not the point. The point is He knows you'll never be able to jump through the hoops enough, and He will meet you right where you are, wherever that is. And maybe you haven't made that decision. Today can be that time for you. Becoming right with God is never easy, but it is simple. It's a big decision because you're turning over direction of your life to somebody that you can't see with your eyes. You can't hear with your ears. But God has beautiful things in your life if you will allow Him to walk through life with you. And maybe you haven't done that. I want to give you that opportunity before we finish our time here today. Let me say it this way. If you're in the room and you would say, Chris, I don't have a relationship with God, but I want to. I need Him to forgive me, and if He will be in my life and help me to be a better person, man, I need that. If that's you, would you do this for me? Just lift your hand up for a moment so I can see you. I just want to pray with you. I don't want to drag things out, but man, I never want to miss an opportunity to invite someone to come to saving faith in Jesus. I'll wait just a minute here in the room. If you're watching from home, even later in the week, in the comments on whatever platform you're on, just put, pray for me in the comment thread. We want to follow up with you and talk you through that because God has something great for you. Let me end this way for those who are in the room and at home who would say, I serve the Lord. I've dedicated. God is my God. My life is committed to Him, okay? Those of you guys, listen. This is to me too. Do you realize when I prepare these things, a lot of times I'm looking at myself and I'm preaching to myself. And God's working with me on these things and saying, what are the spots in my life where I'm just okay with stuff that seems okay right now, but it's leading me down the road that's going to end up in destruction? I can't see where the road leads, but God can. And there might be things, Christian, in the room, there might be things that as soon as we started talking about this, the Holy Spirit grabbed you on the inside, and you've been uncomfortable with a lot of this because you know that there's stuff in your life that doesn't belong there, and you know it shouldn't be there, but for whatever reason, whether it's I've tried to quit, or I just don't want to see it that way, or it's just too much part of my routine, whatever that, you know it doesn't belong there, and it's just hanging out. And God wants to root that out so that you don't end up in disaster. For others, you might be here and you're like, I don't know, I think things are good. But there could be stuff that you can't see, and somebody in your life who loves you can see it. I don't want you to end up like Judas. So let me end this with two questions for you. Okay? The first one is this. Ask yourself this. Who in your life has a deep enough relationship to point out moral concessions in you and not wreck the relationship? Who has that? Who is that person? And here's what I want to encourage you to do. If you know who that person is, talk to that person today. Maybe they're here in the room with you. Talk to that person and say, hey, can I just open the forum here and say, I just blanket permission, if you see things in my life that are hurting me that I'm not noticing, please tell me. I would rather know. Please tell me. And if there's not a person, then your goal this week is, God, show me who I can talk to about this stuff. Okay? If you're married, it's probably your spouse. Okay? Family members best friends make great. Okay? And let me just say, if you don't have anyone else to talk to, you can talk to me. Okay? But you need somebody who's outside of you. So what are those things? All right? And then the other question to ask yourself is, am I on a regular basis inspecting my life? And if not, then I'm going to start just this week. Let me give you a great way to start. Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be here. A lot of folks from the church are going to be here to spend an hour in prayer. One of the things that we do together, you say, well, this is the leadership of the church. You know what we do every Wednesday night? Every Wednesday night we take time and we say, God, inspect my life. God, look at the inside of me. Point out anything in me that doesn't belong. Point out stuff I don't even know, things that seems okay. Help me. That would be a great way to start. But are you inspecting your life? If not, man, start. The earlier you catch this stuff, the easier it is to root it out. I don't want you to crash. Church, would you stand? I want to speak a blessing over you, and then Missy's going to come with one last thing before we go. Yes, today is heavy. I get it. I know. Listen, I care about you. I want you to make it. I want you to thrive. I'm looking forward to seeing folks who spend their whole life with a firm foundation and enter heaven with a high five, and God says, good job. I'm proud of you. I want every one of you to have that. Let me bless you, and then we'll go. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord cause his face to shine upon you and to be gracious to you. The Lord look on you with favor and give you peace. And as you set out to protect your moral foundation, may he strengthen you and guide you through that process and hold you secure until that day when you check out of this life and meet him face to face. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Chris. Hey, before you go today, I want to remind you, if you're visiting with us and you filled out a Connect card, or if you didn't, go ahead and do that now. You can hand it in back here at our Connecting Point Center. They have a gift for you. Also, if you haven't already checked out the church merch, go do that now and place your order, because that is going to be placed this week. And have a great day. Have a great week. We love you. Be blessed.